It's that time again. The new Super Smash Bros. Games still have some way to go, but until they're released sometime next year, people will be constantly wondering what new features Nintendo and Namco are going to include. The big, obvious area of speculation is just what the character roster is going to be. A series like Smash Bros. Is open to a lot of different characters, from a ton and a half of series, so it's fairly easy to think about just what characters could feasibly be in the next games. So, guess what I'm doing? There's a couple of things I want to get out of the way. For this list, I'm going for a compromise between what I genuinely would like to see in the next Smash Bros. Games and what I think Nintendo needs in the next Smash Bros. Games. It's all well and good screaming for someone like Sora or Goku to be in the next game, but I'm going for what I feel are realistic choices. Just go with me here, and I'll see you on the other side. In general, it seems that gamers really want customization potential in a character, which I think was satisfied to some degree by sticking the villager from Animal Crossing in. I'm sure you'll be able to change what the little guy wears, just like you can in Animal Crossing games, which is only made possible for how much of a blank canvas of a character he is. So, why stop at just one? Harvest Moon was one of those childhood game series. There was Wonderful Life on the GameCube and Friends of Mineral Town on the GBA, and while they're not everyone's type of game, if you can invest enough time into it, it becomes incredibly addictive. So we of course have generic Harvest Moon farmer dude, honestly not much more than template for farming in video games. But that's the thing, he's a character associated with farming, and so the moveset potential is gigantic. I'm not really going to go into too much depth on specific moveset, something I'm going to stick by during this countdown. Harvest Moon Farmer Guy has a ton of things that he could use, ranging from individual tools, suddenly you start hacking away at people with a sickle, to rampaging animals, which I personally think would make a great final smash. A kind of sweeping attack like Marth's critical hit, but slower, you know. Including the guy from Harvest Moon would give a lot more coverage to a very well made game series, though someone would have to give him a proper name. I think he was called Pete in the N64 Harvest Moon and Jack in A Wonderful Life, so just call him something topical like Barack or something, I don't know. When I think Smash Bros, I almost always default to Captain Falcon. The guy is Smash Bros in a nutshell, crazy racer guy with hands made of fire, just desperate for you to show him your moves. And that's all great and stuff, but why has he been the sole representative for F-Zero since the first Smash Bros game? Looks like we need a bad guy of sorts. I feel like the Smash Bros series needs more villains. Yeah, sure, you've got everyone's brave, noble good guy who saves the world, but I think there should be a better good guy, bad guy balance, something like what Dissidia did. Black Shadow would be the obvious choice, being the main bad guy in the F-Zero series ever since 1998 and F-Zero X on the N64. His build is very similar to Captain Falcon, apart from those giant purple devil horns, but we'll just ignore those for now. This could mean that his moveset may end up being a modified version of Captain Falcon's, something similar to what Ganon's got. In which case, you'd probably have to shuffle it about a bit, maybe give Ganondorf a sword or two, or some magic stuff. Of course, you may point out that a character like Black Shadow hasn't been in a game of any description since F-Zero Climax in 2004, which one way or another was 9 years ago. But here's the thing, what Nintendo could and probably should do is release a new F-Zero game after the new Smash Bros games and use the inclusion of Black Shadow to promote the new F-Zero game. This kind of idea is something you'll see a lot during the countdown, partly because it makes good business sense for Nintendo, and partly because it makes sense in my brain. We're only at number 8, but I feel we need a pick from left field, something a little bit weird and quirky. I'm not talking about something like the Wii Fit Trainer or Rob, I'm thinking more along the lines of a character for one of Nintendo's newest series. I'm talking about Dillon from Dillon's Rolling Western. Let me level with you, unless you have a 3DS and are a keen spender at the eShop, this guy isn't going to mean a damn thing to you. He's an armadillo ranger who protects villages from weird rock creatures in a sort of strange mixture of a free-roam 3D exploration game and a tower defense game. It's a fusion that's rarely been done before, and the end result is really impressive actually, definitely worth downloading on a pure technical level. But anyway, we're here for Dillon himself, and I see him acting as either an enhanced version of Sonic or a straight up replacement, albeit much slower. In the games you spend most of your time rolling around and into enemies, so I'm not entirely sure what each individual part of his moveset could be, But with a second game in the series already out, it could help launch this new series, maybe giving Nintendo an excuse to take the series further, and onto the Wii U perhaps. It could pay to go all the way with putting Dillon in the next Smash Bros game. If Dillon was a bit of a weird pick, this next one is out in the goddamn boonies. To be fair, it's not such a random pick, and thinking about it a bit more, I reckon this choice has a fair chance of getting in. It's actually a choice that came about around the same time as the recent Smash Bros trailer. I'm not entirely sure how to structure this, but something from Wonderful 101. So we have a brand spanking new game series from Nintendo, a brand new idea from a company that has had the tendency to rely on bigger franchises in recent years. Not a lot is known about Wonderful 101, and to date, the world has only seen 2 trailers and a gameplay demo, but my god, has this game got potential. It's got the capacity to be a shining highlight in the Wii U's game library, and maybe even a console seller for those who have been a bit skeptical about some of the mediocre games on the Wii U at the moment. At any rate, this game is going to be important for Nintendo, and so it makes a lot of sense to include a character in the next Smash Bros game. It's hard to talk about the finer details of a game that I know very little about, but there's certainly no lack of possibilities with regards to possible characters or movesets. I mean, there's so much going on here, I'm sure some of it can be condensed into a moveset of sorts. And as for a character, well, let's just say that's not a very barren area. Take your pick, guys, let's not be picky here. Sweet lord, here we go.
Shut up!
Yes, I want Travis Touchdown in the next Smash Bros game. Sue me if you want to, but the joke's on you. I ain't got no money. Putting someone like Travis Touchdown in Smash Bros is a little bit obvious, but at the same time, a proverbial minefield. Let's look at the controversial aspects of his character, which to be honest, couldn't be more obvious if someone wrote them in big red letters and threw them in your face. There's no way around it, Travis is from an M-rated game, a game where he swears more than a rapper and leaps around slicing and dicing his way through obstacles. Somehow I don't imagine that Nintendo would allow either of those aspects to be included in Smash Bros, but being honest, both problems are very easily fixed. First thing, remove the blood. I know it's a key part of the No More Heroes series and enhance the crazy combat, but you've got to keep it below an M rating. The rating is also helped by the fact that Travis's weapon of choice is basically a lightsaber, and Smash Bros has had one of them for quite some time now. It's kind of like the Star Fox characters having laser guns, weapons that aren't that realistic and therefore won't influence the minds of the little darlings who play it. Second, just tone down the language. There were some lines during the No More Heroes games that would be broadcastable in a T-rated game, but there shouldn't be too many problems there. Lastly, the inclusion of Travis Touchdown has one big selling point, Goichi Suda. The creator of No More Heroes has mentioned how much he loves the Wii U and how No More Heroes 3 was a nailed-on certainty for the very same console. Including Travis Touchdown would build bridges with Suda51 and in turn help promote the late release of No More Heroes 3. Of course, there's a certain amount of debate whether or not Travis Touchdown will even be in the third No More Heroes game, but I'm going off what I know. Which, admittedly, isn't much, but whatever, let's move on. If you're going to have more than one character from the same series, it's probably for the best that you make their movesets and setups radically different, otherwise you might as well just have a couple of clones. For the most part, this is a problem that's affected the Star Fox series, and while there are some notable differences between Fox, Falco and Wolf, they are still 3 characters that are broadly similar. With each new Smash Bros game, a new Star Fox character has been added, and with the latest installments, I say we buck the trend slightly by including Crystal. Many would argue that Star Fox has been on the decline since the introduction of Crystal and Star Fox Adventures, but I feel like she has a lot more potential for a Smash Bros character. For a change, we have a Star Fox character who won't be running around with a blaster, and leaping around with Firefoxes and speed dash things. For those who have played Star Fox Adventures, Crystal's weapon of choice is her magic staff, a weapon that you don't see her use until the very end of the game, but also a weapon that you utilise throughout the game as Fox. The staff has a ton of uses, ranging from a shooty fire thing to something that creates mini earthquakes, so there's certainly a ton of scope to transfer some of this into a moveset. And of course, Crystal is an agile fox lady, so I'm fairly confident she'll fight and move in such a way, kind of like Zero Suit Samus, but, you know, smaller and furrier. But surely now we have too many Star Fox characters. Surely 4 characters from a game series that hasn't had a new installment since 2006 might be pushing it slightly. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right for a change, and as a result, I reckon you'd have to remove either Falco or Wolf. I'd honestly get rid of Wolf because while we do need more villains in Smash Bros, Wolf still feels like a copy-paste of the other Star Fox representatives, and that's just not gonna cut it. In the eyes of some, I had some credibility before starting this list. In the eyes of some, my opinion was respected and deemed to be sensible, backed up with points and arguments and sort of logic. Well, fuck that noise, I want Ridley in Smash Bros. This seems to be the mine that no one wants to step on, the prospect of putting a character like Ridley into Super Smash Bros. It's the sort of thing you have to whisper quietly through fear of being ridiculed and thrown into the madhouse, chained to a wall, and fed on the remains of your inmates. Needless to say that this could well be considered unstable ground. So let's break this one down a bit and I'll state my side. Ridley is a representative of the Metroid series, one of Nintendo's biggest franchises dating way back to the mid-1980s. Yet for how hugely successful Metroid is as a series, only the main character Samus Aran and her variation have ever made it into a Smash Bros game. I know, in Metroid games there aren't a lot of consistent characters that can be transferred from one game to another, and the few that are regulars can't really be stuck in Smash Bros, but Ridley stands out as one that can be. The big criticism over Ridley is his size. Without even looking at Metroid, the fights against Ridley in Brawl's Subspace Emissary shows just how much bigger he is than other playable characters in the game. Even so, having a small character model for Ridley just seems weird and unnatural, like shrinking Kronos from God of War 3 down to normal size. But at the same time, you could argue that Nintendo has fucked about with character scaling before. Just look at Captain Olimar. The guy's supposed to be about the size of a coin, and he's considerably bigger than any coins I've ever seen. Does this mean that Ridley has a chance of getting into Smash Bros? Well, maybe. Nintendo fairly recently released a screenshot of a stage in Smash Bros WiiU from Other M. More specifically, the Pyrosphere where Samus fought Ridley in Other M. It could mean one of two things. Ridley's either going to appear as a stage hazard in the background, or maybe, just maybe, he's going to appear as a playable character. Then we'll see who the crazy ones are. I've got to be honest here guys, for how much I love Mario games and their impact at various stages in Nintendo's history, the one thing I don't want above all else in the new Smash Bros game is another character from a Mario game. Sure, you could probably get some sort of mileage out of bunging in WiiLuigi or fucking Toad or someone, but they won't add anything truly significant to the character roster, they don't stand for much. In addition, I kind of share this thought with the Zelda series, the same sort of idea applied. With one exception. Alright, I say one exception, I actually mean two exceptions. With the release of Skyward Sword, the one thing that very few people can argue about is the use of Groose, and more specifically, GHIRAHIM. Both characters have very three-dimensional personalities, and the scenes they appear in are often some of the game's greatest highlights. Personally, if Groose was put in instead of GHIRAHIM, I wouldn't have too many complaints. The Smash Bros series would have gained a fresh, new, and very entertaining character. But in case you've forgotten, this is still my list, and I want GHIRAHIM. I think what swings this in favour of GHIRAHIM is his arsenal of weapons. He's got a ton of crap that he could use, the red diamond things, his big swords, his impressive physical moves, his goddamn tongue if he wants to, there's no lack of variety with this guy. He always has that Wario feel to him, a character that defies regularity for a volatile and unpredictable moveset that should be, at the very least, hilarious. There's plenty of support for a character like GHIRAHIM to be in the next Smash Bros games. Nintendo would still love to promote Skyward Sword even after what would be 3 years since its release, in which case they could well coax people towards the new Zelda game on the Wii U, whenever the hell that comes out. Factor in the Skyloft stage in the debut trailer, and I'd say that a character from Skyward Sword is a borderline guarantee. I just hope it's GHIRAHIM. The first 8 entries into this list are of characters I would like to see in the next Smash Bros game, mixed with what I think the series needs. The top 2 on this list are both characters I genuinely think will make it into the next games. It makes way too much sense for them to be in the next character roster. Let's start with Punch-Out's Little Mac. If you've never played Punch-Out before, it's literally a fancy boxing game. Your main character Little Mac works his way through a motley cast of charismatic and stereotyped boxers in his journey to the top, and the undisputed best boxer guy in the world. It's a surprisingly simple concept, but it's a series with a lot of personality, and one that doesn't really take itself too seriously. Which, in other words, is the perfect formula for the Smash Bros series. You may remember that Little Mac's already been in a Smash Bros game, appearing as an assist trophy in Brawl, where he would come out and do some punching, finishing with a brutal uppercut. What that means is that it shouldn't be too hard to flesh out his moveset and make him a proper character. He's described as a lightweight scrapper, so I'm sure he could work in a similar way to Sonic, a sort of fast combo character to go with the literal 1-2 nature of boxing. His moveset would obviously be filled with physical boxing attacks, but I'm sure the special moves could have something special about them. Maybe some sort of flurry attack, maybe a final smash with his trainer Doc Louie running around tackling people. Use your imagination, it could be fun. Also, like the possibility of a character from Skyward Sword, the inclusion of a boxing ring in the Smash Bros trailer is a fairly good indication that he may end up in the game in some capacity. I guess we could still get King K. Rool in his boxing stage from Donkey Kong 64, but I'm staying hopeful on this one. You gotta believe, guys. Number 1 is a big problem. A problem that's been ticking along for some time now, and can only be solved by putting this one specific character into Smash Bros. It makes enough sense, the benefits could be incredible, and the possibilities created by putting this one character in the next games could be cataclysmic. The character I most want in Super Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS is Professor Layton. Okay, let me level with you here. I'm fairly confident that the vast majority of you people have no idea who Professor Layton is. You may have a vague idea. He's the dude with the top hat and the tiny eyes, and is the star of a couple of puzzle games on the DS. And actually, all of that is accurate to some degree. The Professor Layton game started just a year before the release of Smash Bros. Brawl, and was at that time a series in its infancy. It trundled on, releasing an average of one game a year, up to Professor Layton and the Azran Legacy, due out later this year. And it's not like they've just copy-pasted ideas, there's even a crossover with the Phoenix Wright series on its way sometime next year. It's also the biggest selling original DS exclusive series at over 13 million copies as of March of last year. It's safe to say that this is a franchise with big plans and ideas, at which point we arrive at Super Smash Bros. Professor Layton himself is a very distinct character. A clever Sherlock Holmes type character with a sweet top hat who hangs around contemporary London, solving puzzles and riddles and other clever stuff. This makes the move to Smash Bros so incredibly easy. He'll stand as a completely different character to anything ever seen in the series before. It's like how Capcom stuck Phoenix Wright in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. A type of curveball that'll get people interested in just who the hell this Layton guy is. The moveset would be easy, just screw around with something stupid, something that people will look at and think, oh wow, it's so cool how Layton fucking throws his hat at people. Doing so will increase the popularity of Professor Layton games by a massive margin. I know 13 million copies of half a dozen DS games is pretty good, but with the right promotion it could be so much better. Professor Layton games could be more than just that great new idea from those crazy Japanese Nintendo people. It could be a true household name. This has been rabbidluigi, and I've got some Professor Layton games to buy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.
Efficient German sick.